Good morning. Welcome to the Potpourri class today. Today's class is going to be on Southwest Pottery and Artifacts by Kent Jefferies. He's got a lot of stuff he's going to be talking to us about here, as you can see, pottery and artifacts. It's going to be very interesting, and so if everybody just one thing I do want to make mention before we get started with the pottery class here is next week we're going to have a class on I can't remember the name of it. She's got a different name for it, kind of like Shoah, but it's going to be on the Jewish nation and the Holocaust. There is one stipulation. We will not be telecasting this or recording it. So if you want to hear this class and want to be here, you have to be here in this room present. So make sure you know about that and let your friends know, especially those that are on the Zoom today too. She's got a lot of stuff, and she's been doing this off and on for people around the valley quite a bit. And it's very, very informative. She is actually a retired professor and been doing this for many years. So thank you very much, and we'll get started with Kent here.
Okay, this is, I taught school for 35 years, and this is a little bit more difficult than that, just because they were a more known quantity. You people who have come from so many years of different experience. We lived on the Navajo Indian Reservation with 5 of our 7 kids. 6th one was born just as we were leaving, just before we left. And so, at any rate, we lived down in the Four Corners area for a while. And I worked on my MFA down there, started a project on the reservation and finished it up in Provo. And this beat up book here has pictures of my MFA pottery and everything. And some of it you'll be able to see the influence from the Southwest Indians. I'm not an anthropologist or archaeologist, whatnot, but over the years I have learned some things, and you may have a difference of opinion as to some of the years and whatnot, but I'll just give you my take on it, and then I'm wanting to tell you a little bit about the Pueblo Indians and the Navajo Indians. The anthropologists feel like all these Indians came across the Bering Strait and came down, and my particular take on that is that there were enough of them came across there to fulfill the anthropologist's theory, but my opinion is there were several boatloads of people that came over from the Middle East or from someplace other than the Bering Strait. So about 400 or 500 years ago, some of these people, they were called the Athabascans, and they came down into this area, and they were speaking the same language, but they split up. Half of them went a little further south, and they became the Apaches, and the Navajos stayed a little bit further to the north. We had, at that time, there were some people that lived up in cliff dwellings. There are different theories about where they went. I mean, they don't know if there was a disease, if there was drought, if there was an enemy that came down, or a combination of one or more of these things. But those people became extinct, and the descendants of those people, when I have you give me that, there it is. Okay, it's right over here. Okay, there, that's what I need. Okay, this is the Rio Grande River here. You got Taos, New Mexico up there, and you got the Santa Clara and the San Ildefonso and Cochiti. All of these are pueblos. And if you go a little bit further west, you come across the Lagunas and the Acamas, the Zunis, and go out as far as the middle of Arizona. Out there we have the Hopis. And so we were living, I think the Hopis probably be a little bit further north than what this design shows, but we lived up there in the Four Corners area, down just on the Arizona side. Sometimes when there was Johnson O'Malley funds from the government, I was able to take my 15 or 20 best art students, put them on a bus, and we went out and we went through all these areas to see the artwork, pottery, of course, but there was other artwork also. So this nice pot, sister, will you give me your name? Michelle? This belongs to her. It is a beautiful pot. And the shiny part has been burnished. The part that's not shiny was not burnished to make that beautiful black. It's a little heavier than what I would make if I were throwing a pot, but this was not thrown. This was hand built. Beautiful pot. They go to the river and find a stone that could go across. I just had my students in school take the back side of a spoon and we'd use that to burnish, but I wasn't going to give them rocks to throw in the classroom here, you know. They had enough problems with throwing clay, let alone rocks. So anyhow, this is nicely burnished, and just wanted to show you that the rest of this stuff that I have gathered, and I'll talk to you a little bit about it here, but I'd like to go to the next slide. I don't think I have a way of controlling that, do I?
Yeah. No, but you can use a pointer if you want to.
Have a pointer here you
With
can
the-
use.
A pointer?
Yeah. Laser pointer.
Huh.
It's front button.
Want me to point at it? No.
I've pointed something on the screen.
I see. Okay. Okay, so this is a similar type thing. Is what Michelle, is it? Jerry. Jerry. Okay, so this is stuff that's been burnished. All of this stuff has been burnished, and then this stuff was left unburnished, and so shiny black to matte black, all on the same surface there. And I can't make this go. You're going to make it go ahead, huh?
I will, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a PowerPoint yet.
The burnish is done. The burnish is the shiny stone out of the creek bed. Like I said, the backside of a spoon does a pretty good job too. And I could have lots of spoons around the classroom. Didn't want single rock in there, so we did it a little different in my classroom. But we did some burnishing. They take they can. There's still a little moisture in the surface, and they take the backside of that spoon or take that rock that kind of fits their hand, and they go back and forth so it kind of makes all of the there's one particle of clay is 500 times smaller than a grain of sand and flat as a wafer. So if we're going to go in there, we can get all of those wafers all lined up so that they have a nice shiny surface. So good question though. Thank you. Okay, next. Okay, now this is Maria San Ildefonso, and that's her son Tony Day. And why don't we go on from there? I've got too much to talk about this. This is a very famous woman here. Sorry. Okay, so now we're going to talk about all these one at a time here. So first of all, these Pueblo potters, they will start a fire. And they want to put their pottery in it, but they don't want to just throw their pots down in these ashes. So they'll take old broken bowls or license plates, anything that can cover that. Still let the heat come through, but let their pots, after they spend all these weeks getting this pot all burnished and built and everything, they and I'll teach you a little bit how they build them here. But so at any rate, they put these things over the fire, and then they put their pots. Biggest ones will be upside down at the bottom. Okay. Right. They're gonna put that upside down over that, the things that they've got covering the fire. And I call it a soak. Some of the potters call it candling. I don't know what the Indians call it. It's just something they've got to get that last bit of moisture out of the clay, because if the moisture is still in the clay, and sometimes these people make things that are a little thicker, you'll notice that excuse me, this pot of hers is a little thicker than any of these Navajo pots, except maybe, even it's thicker than this here. But if it's thick and there's moisture trapped inside that hasn't had a chance to evaporate, then what's going to happen if we heat it up too fast?
Correct.
Okay, it's gonna. Thank you very much. We're gonna blow up the piece, and I've seen that too often myself. I've seen pots that, and when they blow up, they don't just break themselves. Sometimes they go over and break pots around them. So very disastrous. So don't want to have that. So now they've got them covered up, and they've got their pots on there, and they are going to use cow manure. The pioneers coming across the plains use buffalo chips. They use, and some of these people refer to them as dollars. Anyhow, you take those and you start building up down here, and you keep going and keep going, and the fire is still going, and you're putting all this combustible material there, and by the time you get through, your eyebrows have been singed, they say. And if this is red clay, and I want it to be black, then I'm going to take some powdered sheep manure, and I'm going to just shake it down over the top. I don't want to put too much, I'll smother the fire, but enough to change a carbon type atmosphere in there, and then we'll get these black. But if you want to stay red, you like that color, then you don't do that particular process. Okay, so that's it. Okay. You see how precise these lines are, like they were done by a machine. These are all hand done and going from big to small, uniform all the way around. And there's a plant, Rocky Mountain bee plant. There's some plants that you'll cook up and it'll make it's called guaco. And so I'm going to get a fiber. If you've seen a yucca plant, it's got sharp, barby leaves. Then it has a stem coming up out of it. Then it'll have blossoms or little fruit or whatnot up there. But they're going to take one of these leaves, and they're going to cut off a little piece of it and they'll even chew it to get rid of the pulp. And then they've got these fibers that are 3 or 4 inches long, and they dip it in this guaco, and the pot goes in this direction. And they're able to put down those very thin lines very, very precisely. And it's not something we're going to get done before dinner. It's something you're going to work on. And okay, so anyhow, this is a beautiful example of Pueblo pottery. And if you get real curious about that, I can go back and find it in the book here. I'm feeling like I'm a little bit behind here, so I'm going to just go ahead and let you enjoy that. And then, okay, and here's one, a polychrome. So we're going to have red and black and white, or it'd be just black and white, and the gray made up of these little thin lines again, But it's called polychrome because there are more than 2 colors or more than 2 values there. And you see it even a little bit closer with this nice enlargement that he's got for us there. But these symbols all have, there might be a storm, there might be some kind of a representation, something that is meant to have a certain meaning. It isn't just curly cues up there. They put it up there to I'm trying to see if I have it. If you look over here, this is the Anasazi. This is before the Pueblo. These are the ancestors of the Pueblo. So all of these are very rough looking. They didn't bother to polish them or anything like that. They're utilitarian. They want to be able to store food or maybe even cook food. It's believed that some of the first pottery made was a basket they made, and they had it covered with clay. And something happened where the basket gets burned off, but the clay is still there and in position. Hey, wait a minute, what have we done here? And we've got something. And so, again, that's all theory, but they believe that there has something to do with that, where we have utilitarian. And so, so anyhow, this is just a mosaic made out of some broken pieces of pottery shards. You see, this one's been in the fire a little bit more than some of the others. These down here are black on white. No polychrome here, but black on white, and meant to kind of help people to enjoy some of the work that those ancient people did. Okay, so where are we at here?
I had to redo something. I'll be right back.
Okay, you'll be right back.
It'll be right.
Oh, you'll be right back. I thought maybe you're leaving us here. Okay.
Here it comes.
All right. Okay, so this is utilitarian right here. This one here has been made by, when they make pottery, they have a small shallow dish, and they'll roll out some clay and have a little tortilla of clay, and a quarter of an inch, maybe just a little thicker than that for the bottom if it's any size at all. And so that's sitting in a dish, the dish helping it hold its shape. Then they're going to roll out a coil, and they take that and they start flattening it, making a fillet. And when that fillet is hooked on the inside, and they go around, they hook it on and make sure it's joined. But when you have utilitarian, you don't join it the same way. You're probably going to have again, maybe of a piece of that yucca plant. And they're going to go around and press in and make a particular pattern, but not going to have any particular designs except the texture made by that. And so I don't know whether they had a particular length of time that they lasted and had to get another one made to replace it, but they're not quite as, don't need to be quite as careful with these. They're a little bit more sturdy and rugged, and they might cook in them. They might fill them with water and put a plug up there and bury them someplace, or the droughts that they're experiencing, they'll have a source for a little bit of water. Okay. Okay, this lady's name is Nampeo. This is her daughter, and these are pots made out the Navajo Indian Reservation, and so she's gone, but her daughters, whether they've remarried or not, they're going to be using the name Nampeo on their pottery. I'm trying to think of the famous artist Picasso. You know, Picasso had a couple dozen kids or more, and I won't go into his history, but at any rate, I remember one of his daughters became a she made jewelry, but she made sure that she kept her father's name, whether she was married or not. Hey, there's Picasso on there. I'm going to get a lot more money because I am the daughter of Picasso, you know. And so I would imagine that the kids, the grandkids, all probably going to stay pretty close to that name, Nampeo. But beautiful work. And here we got polychrome. We've got the black, and we've got the orange. And so anyhow, those are all. Anyhow, there. I never did have enough money to buy any of this work. I enjoyed it, and took my students to come go see it and appreciate it better. Okay, and here we have another group of just going to let you kind of look at that, and I'm going to keep moving and get across the okay.
I've been wondering what what causes those colors? Is that paint? Is that clay that's been?
Yeah, now,
I don't know.
very good question. If I'm a potter and I want to have some white pottery, and I don't have very much white clay. I got a little source over here, but my white clay is going to be used up real fast if I make full pots out of that. So you might take a look at a piece that's broken, and you'll see that the inside of it has a gray or brown look, and it was an inexpensive or common clay. And then they took some of the white and painted it on and burnished it in, and so you got the guaco that I mentioned is black, and you've got white clay, which is probably a porcelain type of a clay, and there's quite a bit of the orange clay that usually is called red, but it's more orange than red. Like this lady's hair, it's more orange than red, huh? Looks nice. Okay, go ahead, please. Yeah. The more beautiful. Okay, I'm going to have you move on here. Okay, now these are, I'm trying to think of the lady's name, but there's a woman that makes these. She's from a particular tribe. There's only one tribe that makes these. But it's kind of like the old woman lived in the shoe, had more kids, and she didn't know what to do, and spanked them all and put them to bed or something like that. I don't know, but she's got these little children crawling all over her there. Just a really enchanting type of a work that she did.
That one has even more.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked like she's singing or chanting, and these kids are crying, huh? Yeah. Okay. Her name is Laura Kerman. Oh no, there it is. Helen Cordero of the Cochiti Pueblo. So one of those pueblos up and down the Rio Grande, the Cochiti Pueblo. And Helen Cordero is her name. The lady that makes those. Yeah. Okay. Her name is Blue Corn. And she's in the process. You can see her hands are covered with clay, and she's in the process of building a pot. And here you see she's got this pot in this little dish down here, and she's been building on it, adding. Now, when I went out to watch the Navajo potter, this lady out near the Shanto Junction, and she allowed me to come in and sit down, and she'd be working on a pot, and she added 2 or 3 of these fillet and smoothed them out and whatnot, like it's happening here. And then she just set it off away from her, put a damp cloth over the top to make sure the lip didn't dry out, and wanted the rest of it to dry out somewhat to be a little firmer, you know. So then she grabs one of the others and brings it over, and she puts some more fillets on it, and she just kept those 3 moving around and let the, you know, that's as much what's the word, production. I'm trying to think of a word, but anyhow. So okay, now this person here, you'll see another of his pots, but he is taking the time. This grapefruit sized piece here, he's burnished it and whatnot. Then he's going back with a sharp tool, and he's picking off the surface, but he's making a pattern out of those scratches so that it really enhances the surface beauty of it here. And all the turquoise that he has, he doesn't make lots and lots of pots, but the ones he makes are worth an awful lot of money.
That's the last picture.
That's the last one. Okay.
That one now.
Okay. Let me just get his name. Okay. His name is Joseph Lone Wolf. Joseph Lone Wolf.
That's his pot too.
And this is his pot too. he's done something similar to this. He's gone in and if you could see the detail, the scratches in here, give you a texture that lets it kind of, you can see some of it over here. But anyhow, this one would take him months to make this thing. He's got to build it, he's got to design it, then he's got to go in and work on the surface there. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's it. Okay, now,
There's the camera.
he, I don't know, he may have
Yeah.
a spray bottle.
Okay.
I don't know. I show you some of these pots here. This is a lot lighter than that one over there. And it has some nice leaves pattern, but you notice this coil going all the way around the pot? It will not come around and touch. There will always be a space called a spirit gate. The potter believes that he ever closes it off, he'll never make another pot. That's the end of his pottery if he closes those off. So anyhow, there's every one of them that has a coil around it has that same spirit gate. Goes around here, and there it is right there. Yes.
I know the Navajo, I worked out there in a reservation also.
Yeah.
And the Navajo also has this, on their rugs, they have a kind of escape place like you mentioned.
Yeah, and the basket there, if you see a wedding basket, it's gonna go around and around and suddenly it's not gonna come together, you know, that's just something they're very consistent with in all of the artwork, so thanks for that comment. Yes,
Why do they have that spirit? I mean, that gap between the ends of the,
they want to make sure that the spirit can get out. It is not trapped by the design in the pot, so it's something they feel very strongly about.
so it can get out.
We had a Navajo live next to us and they say that they have to make a mistake on everything so that, because only God's perfect and they're not perfect. And so they always make a mistake in what they do.
Interesting, huh? Here's a hogan that the Navajo made. And of course, you gotta have a basketball hoop outside. If you drive past these old traditional houses, and they don't become really good basketball players because they can't dribble very well, so they run with it, they travel quite a bit, and so that's not a very good surface for dribbling on, but you got a barrel out here and whatnot, and so anyhow, some things that made up I was trying to see if it had the artist's name there, but the back in the early 1600s, the Spanish came in and they conquered or suppressed. They came in and tried to make these people better than they were. You know, they felt like their religion wasn't good enough and their lifestyle was not good enough. So they kind of had their thumb on these people. And for 60, 70 years, this went on. And finally, some people just had had enough. And so it's called the Pueblo Revolt, Pueblo Rebellion. And there was a number of the Spanish fathers and whatnot were injured or killed. And many of the people just left and went up to live with the Navajos. Well, the Navajos were considered kind of a barbaric people. The Pueblos have in their history that these Navajos were called trying to think of head smasher. There was some word for it. They didn't just kill the enemy; they came up and smashed their heads flat. They were really barbaric and very atrocious in their attack on their enemies. So anyhow, and they were nomadic. They had horses before any of the Pueblos. So the Pueblos were agrarian, and they grew most of their food. They might have to go get a rabbit, and if they're lucky, they might get a deer. I don't know, but you know, they weren't traipsing after buffalo or anything big. They didn't have any horses. So, I mean, I don't know how many ever ate a buffalo steak and how, whatnot, you know, but it was not something usual for them. So here we have, for 12 years, these Pueblo people went up and lived amongst the Navajo. Well, the Navajo didn't have any culture to speak of. So while they're there, they picked up weaving, clothing and rugs. They picked up jewelry, and I think you'll find if you look close that the Navajos today make better pottery than the Navajos make better than the Pueblo Indians, except for the Zunis. So the Zuni have a mesa over close to the Arizona-New Mexico border, and I think you find that their inlet beautiful designs, it exceeds the quality of the Navajo somewhat. But for the most part, here the Navajos have picked up weaving and do it as well or better than the people that taught them. Same thing with their jewelry for the most part. Basket weaving. Anyhow, everything they taught them pottery also. But along came white man with his pots and pans. If I'm nomadic and I got to get out of town fast or I got to move, I want something that's going to bounce up and down without breaking. And so, hey, white man's got the solution for it. So they didn't continue on with the intensity in pottery as they did with the others. Yes.
I noticed that they're very proud of what they have made. And an example is this. My husband and I went to the Los Angeles County Fair in Pomona, and there were Native Americans selling turquoise jewelry, and I bought a ring and put it on. It was signed inside on the silver. We were walking around looking at exhibits, and an Indian fellow came up to me and said, "I made your ring."
No.
He could see it, and I was just like a touristy person, and I pulled it off, and he told me his name, and that's what was inside my ring. But he recognized his own
His work. Yeah.
art. Yep.
Yeah.
Tell them about your
About who?
Santo.
This book was illustrated by one of my students. His name is Shanto Begay. But in my classroom, his name was Harrison Begay. But when he became a potter, not a potter, an artist, why, you're not going to sell nearly as much artwork with a name like Harrison Begay as you will with it. You get yourself a Navajo name like that. So these illustrations are very ethereal. They're kind of whimsical, and so some woman is telling the story, and he's illustrating it, and he got international acclaim for that. He's now a professional artist. If you were to pull him up on what do you call it? Google. If you were to pull him up on Google, you'd find beautiful pictures that he does. He does people and landscapes and whatnot. But he was an alcoholic when he came to my class, and his best friend, who was a little bit better artist than him, had died that summer. I come up and signed my contract, and by the time I got back at the end of the summer, he had already been with a bunch of buddies, and they were drinking. They rolled the vehicle, and he was gone, and had people from all over the state say, "Hey, do you have any of his work?" And because he became quite famous in the state for high school artwork. I said, "I don't have any, but I think I do have a piece of his work over here I found later on." But so at any rate, this boy had, yes.
It seems like it's really a strong trait for Native Americans in that they're very artistic in all of the
Autistic or artistic?
art,
Okay. Okay.
and that in poetry And then I wanted to make another comment. I worked at the Grand Canyon and in the El Tovar Hotel, which is really well known, and they have murals of the different tribes. And you can see as they are depicted that the characteristics that the tribes have. When you said that the Navajos were not as, probably known for their crafts,
Oh, they are, but not.
but
not-
at the
not in
time,
pottery. Yeah,
yeah.
they have exceeded the people that taught them
well,
in almost all the arts.
okay, but then because there's certain tribes and they're known for their characteristics. The Apaches were known for being more harsh, and you can yes, warlike, and you can see it in their countenances in these murals, the difference in the tribes. You can and then you could recognize what tribe they're from just
And there are
looking
half a
at
dozen
them.
Apache
Mhm.
tribes all the way down through Texas, and Geronimo, of course, very warlike, and some
And-
of the other chiefs are very warlike.
And the traits are so strong at, I don't know if they just intermarry with their own tribes to keep those traits, but you can really tell the different tribes.
It's one of the biggest tribes of all the Indians. And so if some of the Utes that are just right on the periphery, if they can get their kids to go and marry a Navajo, why suddenly they've got some revenue being able to come in because this tribe has more money than the other Indian tribes. So a lot of times the parents are encouraging them to go date some Navajo boy so that they can. Yeah, I don't know that they will regularly do it, but it happens on occasion down in the Four Corners area, up on the Indian reservation. There's by Blanding, there's a little bit of that goes on. But at any rate, this boy, he was drawing in my classroom. I come walking by and I saw this 12 by 18 pen and ink sketch of juniper trees, little Navajo children, and as the landscape went back further, lighter and lighter lines, and it looked like you could see 10 miles into this picture. And I said, Harrison, that is beautiful. And suddenly, I mean, I've never felt badly about complimenting a child, but I was a Gomali. I mean, I was a Belagana Gomali, and on top of that, I was a teacher. And they looked at him, and if looks could kill, he had been on a gurney heading out of. And so he's really, and so he grabs his pen and draws a little toothless man in the front, and everybody laughs, and the pressure was off of him, and he ruined the picture, but he no longer had this social pressure there. So I've probably run out of time, haven't I? Oh, have I? I got some time. All right, so at any rate, he only came to my class a couple of times a week. And I went up to him one day, I said, Harrison, your work is fantastic. I won't be able to give you the grade I won't be able to give you the A that you ought to have unless I can get you to do some makeup work. And I said, here in this bag, I've got a brand new drawing pad. I've got pen and ink. I've got erasers, pencils, everything that you would use in my classroom. I'd like you to do some work outside of class. Oh, that means yes. Okay. Oh, so he takes it with him, and I don't see him for a couple of weeks. He comes up and hands me that book, and I thought, well, great. He's got 2 or 3 drawings done, so I'll be able to open it up, and every single page is a finished drawing. I mean, it might be 2 little Navajo children in costume, or a little goat. It might be a cowboy trying to hang on to this bucking bronco. You might have Mustangs running up the side of a mesa. And all just enchanting. They're all beautiful. And so I tore each one of them out of the book, and I put a mat on it, and I went around to the teachers. And I was able to sell them for $10 or $15 a piece, and I suddenly had $160. Well, if I'd like to sign his death certificate, I'll give him $160, and he'll be out seeing the bootlegger and buying all kinds of alcohol because he was an alcoholic, and his friends were. The ones that didn't get killed in that rollover that I mentioned earlier. So I can't give it to him. I'm certainly not gonna give it to the school. I can't keep it. What am I gonna do with $160? And I looked at his feet and I saw the answer. He had Tony Lama boots taped on with duct tape. I thought, okay, I gotta get him a pair of boots. So when we went in shopping 100 miles away in Cortez, Colorado, or Farmington, I guess we were in Farmington, and across the street from the Safeway market was a Justinian boot store, and I went over and I found one of the most expensive pair of boots, $120 at that time. And so I took these boots and I put a $20 bill in each one of them. I had $160, and I'm ready to hand it to him at the awards assembly there in the gym. Of course, he doesn't show up. He doesn't know he's got something he's going to receive, so he doesn't come. He doesn't come. And then suddenly, when I finally see him, I come up and I said, Harrison, I've got this pair of boots for you here. I was a little nervous about putting $20 in these boots, but at any rate, there were three of us teachers really high on his abilities. So we got him a scholarship, or got him entrance into a place in Santa Fe. It's called a Tribe of Many Feathers. It's a school that teaches all of the arts, and poetry, singing, dancing, sculpture. And so when I was putting together one of these field trips with my best artists, 15 or 20 of the best, and this lady was mentioning that some of them are quite artistic, but they aren't really any more artistic than the Belaganas, the white kids. But those that are artistic are far better than, I mean, they could easily fit into a college, you know. So I took the best with me, and we went over, and one of the places we stopped was there, and I said, where's Harrison? Oh, well, he's not around right now, but he has given up alcohol. He's gotten himself, he's joined a local church, and I said, what's his studying? Well, he's studying medical illustration. Well, he's got it made, you know, because he'd be good enough to do that. But then when he graduated from there, he went down to Cerritos, California, someplace, and I lost track of him. So we get off the Indian reservation, and I'm in the National Guard for a while, and then finally I get a job guiding tours. And I'm driving up through Logan and Jackson, and we go out to this visitor center. And I'm taking these people around and showing them, acting like I knew a lot about the Shoshone Indians. But, you know, if you've seen Indian artwork, you can pretty well fake it and say, hey, you see this nice beadwork or whatnot. And so we were about ready to go, and I looked across the hallway, and there was a sign that says, Chantal Begay. And I said, would you mind if we went over and just kind of checked this? I'm kind of interested in this little step down lounge where this artist is working. So we went over there, and I didn't recognize him very well. I'm just standing back there, and I raised my hand, and I said, he said, what? And I said, can I ask you a question? Oh, certainly. I said, I noticed your name is Shanto. Have you ever visited Shanto? He said, yes, I was born and raised there. Why do you ask? I said, well, I used to teach in Monument Valley in Kayenta, and all of the Shanto kids were bussed in. He got back and shoved his chair out of the way and come up and grabbed my hand, and he said, this is the man that gave me my start. It still chokes me up. But anyhow, it was, anyhow, he's a famous art. Now, I also had two brothers. The one that made this, his name is Elroy Kay. And that little portrait of a girl over there is made by Elroy Kay, by Patrick, his younger brother. This is made by Albert Jim, one of my best wrestlers. I was a wrestling coach, best wrestler and artist. These are sand paintings. This is done with colored sand, and it's not supposed to be sold like this. It's supposed to be, as soon as you're finished with the singer, the medicine man, he's supposed to get rid of it. But of course, there's an almighty dollar there waiting, and so some people have gone ahead and used this very very intricate lines and whatnot. But these are called sand paintings, and they have a little explanation on the back of what they represent. This is called an ojo de Dios, the eye of God. And that's kind of a Spanish word, and I don't know where the Navajos picked it up, if they got it from Mexicans or not, but that's one of their artworks. This is one of the projects I make. I teach the kids how to make a whistle. I put the whistle on top of this. It says, "Holy cow, it whistles." That's a holy cow. And this is Patrick K. And this is Patrick K. You know, Patrick K. did a half a dozen of these in class. Well, 4 of them in class one day. And I took one of them, I sent it off to Flagstaff, and it won and went down to the Herd Museum in Phoenix. And I get a phone call and said, "Are you Mr. Jefferies?" "Yeah." "Do you have a student named Patrick K?" I sure do. He says, "We're looking at this portrait of a girl. Did anyone help him on that?" I said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "There's 2 or 3 others that I could have sent, but I sent that one." That's all we wanted to know. It looked too sophisticated for a high school student. So it went back to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and he wins first place in New York. Well, I think they would just get on the intercom at the high school and say, "Oh, well, congratulations." And I went down, I said, "Hey, wait a minute. If any one of our basketball players or cross country were to win the best in the state, you'd really put on a celebration. This kid has gone all the way to New York. Out of all the high school students in the United States, he has won first place." Okay, great. So they said, "Well, I guess you're right." And so they went ahead and arranged to pay him money for it, put a frame around it, put it up in the hallway there for people to appreciate. And and his older brother is the one that made that painting back there, and another one that I have here, I think. But at any rate, his work went back to the Metropolitan, got honorable mention, like a 3rd place with his pen and ink drawing. But so anyhow, some beautiful artwork made by the kids there, and I don't know if I've gotten through. I brought more stuff than I needed, and I'm sorry to go on and on here. I have any questions? Yes. Yes.
What you're doing is really, really critical. I taught art for 6 years on a university level. And I have to tell you, I had a lot of Native Americans take my basic drawing class, and they shocked themselves. They didn't even know they were that good. And not everyone was like what you discovered in Harrison, but it was amazing. They'd never drawn before. And when I taught them the basics, it was mind-boggling how good they were. It's a gift of some kind.
They didn't have to look at anything. It came out of their heads.
Unbelievable talent. Just one was an accounting major, almost ready to graduate, and he said, "I had no idea I was an artist, but I'm an art. I better change my major," because it was so good.
That's great.
And I don't know what it is, but there's a gift of being able to see, unlike others can see.
Yeah.
And so thank you for bringing all of these beautiful things. The wedding.
Oh, the wedding vase has 2 spouts, one for the bride and her side of the family, and one for the groom and his side of the family. But this little lady from the Shanto Junction, she makes 3. So we got one for the bride and one for the groom and one for the out-of-towners, not the family, I guess, I don't know, but pretty unusual for him to put these little sculptures in between it there. So this one has little horny toads down here. And now to tell you about this pottery here, when they fire something, they pull it out of the fire, and they have a bucket of pine dripping. What do you call it? Pine sap. And they'll have a piece of burlap, and they'll put it in there, and they'll start spinning it around and getting it covered as fast as they can, so not to burn their hands. And where Where the pot is really hot, that goes black. Where it's a little cooler, and so you get kind of a camouflage type of effect on it there. It's a really nice. These are nice and light. You know, they're not heavy whatsoever. These here, we just got a couple cobs of corn here.
Question,
Yes.
these are all done by coil. None of this is on a turntable.
Yeah, there's nothing made on
So
the
it's all
turntable.
handmade from coils and hand shaping, which takes 50 times longer.
Right. And tried to keep 2 or 3 of them going so they could be a little more productive. Yeah. I said to the lady, I said, where do you sell your work? Well, I go into Shanto. And, well, how much does he give you for? Well, he gives me 10 or $15. I said, if you'll let me take them, I can take them in. The teachers will give you a lot more. Oh, and she got really afraid that I was going to suddenly mess up her revenue, her income. And so she would not let me take any of her pot. It's all had to go in, and she had to stay consistent with this trader. We had a trading post in Kayenta, and this LDS lady who was married to a Navajo man, she came in and she picked up a shopping cart, and it was a pretty good sized trading post. And as she was going past it, she could see the owner out there, and this man wanted like $60 for this weaving. No, I can't give you 60. You can see here where this is uneven here, and the color here has changed here. And he just went through and just verbally tore it down, and the guy went ahead and accepted the amount of money they was offering. When she finished shopping, just per chance, she's going by the very same rug is being offered to one of the tourists. Now you can see this is very authentic. Here the color, and you know, and went and used the exact same points that he had cheated the other person out with, and so she suddenly tore into him. I'll see you, you know, and there are no newspapers in the town, but her jerking him around for what he had done. He didn't come into his store for a couple of weeks there because he was too embarrassed of what the people were doing. I mean, like I say, word of mouth, but it went miles away from town, all of the areas there. Any other questions you have? What's that?
The rug.
Oh. Yeah, that's quite filled with symbolism. I believe that was done by a Hopi. I had 2 or 3 Hopis in my class, maybe twice that many Anglos, Belaganas, huh? Yeah.
Somebody wanted to know about the rugs.
One was purchased and one was given as a gift to us, and a lot of times they were hanging on a wall. Right now they're not up. And one time I was being not chastised, but whenever the wrestling season was over with, I'd take all of these that had holes in the knees and I'd come home, and Nancy was nice enough to patch them up for me, and I'd bring them back out for the next season. And pretty soon they said, "Oh, Coach, we don't want the kids to use these anymore. We appreciate you're trying to be frugal, but we'd like to have these thrown away, and we'd like to buy brand new ones for the whole team." I was using the brand new one just for the varsity. And so I thought, well, okay. And so I looked at them. I thought, how many 1-foot pieces can I cut out of all these? And I had quite a few. I had a 9-foot cover on one side and a 9-foot cover on the other side, made it into a quilt. On one side, in the middle, I put the very best wrestlers who won championships or placed in, and then others who did quite well. And then those I just enjoyed having on the team. And then the other side, I did the same thing with art. Those that had won prizes with their artwork, and those that were exceptionally talented, and those that I really enjoyed having in class. And so then we put a pad between it, and we what do you call it when you tie anyhow, tied. And recently recently I retired it to, and gave it to the school, and I don't know what they're doing with it, but that's, my kids, as they grew up, went down in the den, and they, you know, it's a jersey that, you know, that workout clothes are made out of, and they all enjoyed, you know, using it. So. Yes.
I think it may have been back in, in the 80s or something. We had
Placement student? No.
an exchange Navajo person come and live with us. And when she left, she graduated from Provo High School and she left and went back to the reservation. But the year after, she brought us a Navajo rug
Oh,
that I cherish that. And, you know, she didn't have to do that,
right.
but she did.
Appreciate
They
it.
are very,
We
very
appreciate
humble
what you've
people.
done for.
Yeah.
We had a lot of these kids go off. The name for an apple, excuse me, the name for a white person is Beligana, but the name for an apple is Belisana. So when these kids come back from placements, what it was called, they say, "Hey, come on, we got a little party out here where we're going to sleep with some of the yokels here." And, no, I'm not interested in that. Hey, well, let's go out and the what's the squad dance, it would be called, and or let's go out to the bootlegger and a $2 bottle of Tokay or Garden Deluxe is what they were looking for. Nope, not interested in that. And pretty soon they said, "What? Belisana?" I mean, you're white on the outside like an apple, but you're red on the outside, but white on the inside. And so they're very critical of some of these kids that yeah. So,
Kent, let me share what the internet has to say about your student.
okay.
Chantal Begay is a Native American artist, illustrator, writer, and educator. He began his artistic career in 1983. His art features landscapes and other cultural elements of the Navajo life. His education, Institute of American Indian Arts, and the California College of Arts. He was born in 1954, age 69, and he proudly says, "I am a member of the Navajo Nation."
Yeah. Very good. I need to come over here and lean on this podium here.
Well, that's about it.
Okay.
We would like to go ahead and finish up here. For those here who are in the audience here, you can come on up and look at some of the pottery and the artwork here and some of the artifacts and ask him questions, but we're over here done for the day. And thank you for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow and also next week.
There's some
Thank you very much.